And how was it for you to go back this early? I think because usually, most women choose to stay like a whole year. Looking back, would you say that was the best you could have done, or would you rather say it would have been better maybe to stay a bit out longer, or obviously depending on the circumstance of why you went back this early, but how do you feel about that? Like going back early?
Yeah, so honestly, I loved going back to work. I really did. I really felt like as a mum, I actually came into my own when I went back to work. It also coincided with when I was, we were really making good headway with like weaning our daughter, and she was eating, lots of solids. And so like making her food, me going back to work, I just felt like, okay, this is the new normal. For me, maternity leave, I was always very clear with myself. It was temporary. And I think that this is a mistake that a lot of people make, in that they forget it's for a temporary period of time, and then it hits them like a ton of bricks when it's time to go back. Whereas if you're okay, this is financially how long I'm going to be off for.
Hello, everyone. Today's episode is with the lovely Laura Wilkinson, who is the global head of talent at Intent HQ, but she's also a working mom with a very successful career. And we have a very great topic, which is exactly that we're going to talk about today. And welcome, Laura. So nice to have you. I would love to start with the question of why this topic is important to you.
Yes, I think that it's important because it's a hard adjustment for people who are either going back to work following mat leave, or people who have been back at work and the world is, this whole return to the office topic is ever changing. And so it's just really about, just in my experience and my journey, things that have helped me adjust, make sure that I feel like I'm being, the best employee I can be, and also the best mum. And yeah, so I thought I might have some useful insight to just help people get their head round what is a constantly changing landscape, and a lot of pressure for people, whether you're working mum, working dad, whatever, it's hard. So hoping to just help get some ideas for people to make it a bit easier, really.
Great. Thank you. What would you say were the biggest challenges for you?
I think it's when you feel that you've got your childcare plan sorted, and then, life happens and you need to quickly, reorganize what you're doing. So for me, I was really lucky when I initially came back, which was 6.5 years ago now. That both my mum and my mother-in-law were splitting the childcare. So it was great. My daughter was only 7 months old at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So she was very young, and I didn't love the idea of sending her to nursery that young. So I was very lucky. But then my mother-in-law got very ill, and she did pass away. And so it was quick, find another solution. And of course, wait lists on nurseries now can be years long, at least probably a good few months. So that was really hard when you feel like you're right. Okay, this is our routine, and then something happens, which kind of leads me on to the first tip, which would be that everything's very transient. So things are always going to change. Your child is going to get older. Levels of funding change. Your circumstances will change. And so it's always about not getting too attached to a particular routine or setup. You constantly need to be open to rolling with what might come at you, and being flexible around that. So yeah.
Okay. And so first of all, I'm sorry about your mother-in-law's loss. Obviously I can imagine that this must have had like a big impact on your family, of course.
Yeah.
But then I think sometimes what we really forget as a society is like this big change. I mean, it's all positive, of course, to have a child, but then it has also some negative sides, I guess, especially as a woman, or like it doesn't have to be negative, but it can be difficult because you have to adjust to a new chapter. You have to adjust to your body, to your new body as well. And you have to adjust to all the changes that happen. And then, of course, there is also this other outside world where also things can change, like the loss that you experience. How would you say can you get over that and deal with all that change, I guess?
Yeah, and it's I wish I could say it's really easy, and it doesn't take a toll on you in some way, shape, or form. But it is, you will go on a roller coaster is the honest answer, again, in my experience. I think that things that you can do, especially as a woman, and I'm saying that because of you've mentioned, your body changes, etc., etc. And if you are going back to work, like I say, I wasn't even 7, 8 months past labor when I went back, which if there's someone in the US listening to this, they could be going back as early as a month. Like, it's crazy over there.
Crazy, yeah.
They return. I can't imagine that. Um, so it is genuinely important that you prioritize finding a way of doing the things that make you feel like yourself.
Hmm.
I'm not going to say prioritize self-care, because I think that that's so easy to say. And when you're on potentially a very low hours of sleep, um, you've got a job, you want a life as well. But if it's going to the gym, if it's getting up before everybody else to sit downstairs by yourself and have a coffee just in a bit of quiet, um whatever, these little glimmers that you
Yeah.
can start to add into your day, you've got to be realistic about it. You're probably not going to go for a spa day every week. You're probably not going to just be able to whiz off on a Saturday for 3 hours, and do whatever
Yeah.
you want. So it's all about a realistic fitting things in where you can, that just give you that half an hour sat down quietly, or whether it's meditation, reading your book. I used to love doing a word search. So
Mhm.
my thing would be, I get my little word search book and just have like a coffee, and just those little moments throughout the day that just allow you just to kind of breathe
Mhm.
and then go into the next thing that you're going to be doing.
Yeah.
So it's
And
hard, but you need to prioritize yourself, because if you go down,
yeah,
everyone goes down.
yeah, for sure. And how was it for you to go back this early? I think because usually, most women choose to stay
Yeah.
like a whole year. Looking back, would you say that was the best you could have done, or would you rather say it would have been better maybe to stay a bit out longer, or obviously depending on the circumstance of why you went back this early, but how do you feel about that? Like going back
Um,
early?
yeah, so honestly, I loved going back to work. I really did. I really felt like, as a mum, I actually came into my own when I went back to work. It also coincided with when I was, we were really making good headway with like weaning our daughter, and she was eating, lots of solids. And so, like, making her food, me going back to work, I just felt like, okay, this is the new normal. For
Yeah.
me, maternity leave, I was always very clear with myself. It was temporary. And I think
Mm.
that this is a mistake that a lot of people make, in that they they forget it's for a temporary period of time, and then it hits them like a ton of bricks when it's time to go back. Whereas if you're, okay, this is financially how long I'm going to be off for, the reasons for me returning are probably not right, as in, I didn't want to be forgotten about. So I worked to get to a certain level before I even tried for a baby, because I was like, right, I want to get to this level, knowing that that means when I am back, I'll have a bit more autonomy about how I manage my day.
Yeah.
Um, And I did rush back because I didn't want to be forgotten about and replaced, which
Yeah.
was probably more in my mind than the reality of the situation. Um, and I used to love it. So I'd get back, I'd get in early so I could get out, a bit earlier. And I used to love that half an hour before anyone else got in, and I'd have a coffee, might get my word search out, and I'd just have like 20
Yeah.
minutes of just peace and quiet. And it was funny one day actually, because somebody asked, there was a group of us that had gone on mat leave and came back at around the same time.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, is there something wrong with me? Because everyone else kept like going into the toilets to cry and just really upset.
Okay.
And I sort of said, oh no, actually I quite like it. And then
Yeah.
one of my colleagues said, that's because you're a horrible mum.
Oh my
And I mean, she may have been joking, but it really cut like
God.
and you think, am I a horrible mum? But I'm not.
No.
I'm a mum who wants to work hard so that my daughter has a good setup. And my attitude was and is, if I'm going to get up and leave you, it's going to be for the best possible money, like return on investment for me.
Yeah.
So crying in the toilets isn't going to help with that. So, and I'm not,
Yeah.
I'm not knocking anybody who does have a little cry, but again, for me, it was just, this is the new normal. There's no
Yeah.
point fighting against it. Embrace it and see, well, what can I actually enjoy? What can I look forward to having that little
Yeah.
bit of quiet time?
For sure. And I think there is, I think, a balance to everything, right? Like if you would just like chuck your child somewhere and you wouldn't care for it and
Yeah,
wouldn't care and just go to work and blindly and, kind of shut down everything else, then I think that's also questionable.
yeah,
But
of
I
course.
think if have really the goal to be the best version of yourself for your child, then your child will benefit way more of that than, um, yeah, losing yourself in everything and kind of being unhappy with yourself. So I think there is really this narrative in society that, once you have a child, that you have to kind of give up your whole life and there is no way back, and and you just live basically for your child, which I think is completely wrong. I think, obviously you have to care, and your child should be your main priority, because also it's very dependent on you. But at the same time, if you want to help your child, you need to look after yourself as well in the best possible way, as you said, with those little things that, I don't know, taking your 5-10 minutes in the morning and just have a quiet coffee or whatever it is that gives you peace of mind. And I think this is a really great message that, we shouldn't also be judgmental to anyone, right? Like if anyone chooses to do a
Yeah,
certain thing, you don't know what a person goes through until you actually live what they live. So I think saying that to someone is not the way forward to support each other as well, especially when you go through something very similar. So I'm
yeah. And
sorry
in
that you had
my
to experience that.
Yeah, and in my experience, I mean, I've worked with some truly amazing women so far in my career, genuinely. And actually, the ones who, to what you've just said around, you don't know what someone's going through. I've known people to be going through literally life or death, like that
Yeah.
they're ill, they've got serious stuff going on, and they've showed up. Not, they've taken the time they've needed, but they've showed up, and they're not showing, they're masking a lot. And so when you say things like that to people, oh, you're a horrible mum, or oh, blah blah blah, you don't know what's going on for anybody.
Yeah.
And so I think that, yeah, you're best to just be respectful and just be kind.
Yeah.
Just be kind. You really don't know what's going on. And that's why, people who are upset when they return to work, I know I had a little cry. I went into the shopping centre on my lunch break that day, and a baby went past in a pushchair and cried. But the sound was like,
No.
you feel like it's your own child. And I did have a bit of a moment where I welled up. But again, it was a bit of a snap out of it, like
Yeah.
you've got to come to work because you got a mortgage and all the rest of it. And also I had this kind of hang up about you'll come back in a year and you'll get passed up on promotions and stuff. And so, yeah, I just adjusted to it. And equally, your children pick up on everything that you're feeling. They honestly, I before I had a child, I used to probably think, but honestly, they are so in tune with you.
Mm.
And my daughter, she settled into nursery when we eventually had to send her to nursery. And I have to say, I really do feel for people who at 6 months old, 9 months old are having to leave their child at a nursery 5 days a week. That must be really tough. And so I'm not judging the emotional state of people. I was lucky that I had my the grandparents helping.
Mm-hmm.
But when we did eventually have to get her into nursery with my mother-in-law passing away, we were like inside. I was, I hated the idea of it, but to her it was, this is going to be so exciting for you, and da da da. And after literally 2 days, she'd skip in and she was fine. If you're crying at the door and almost apologizing for sending them to nursery, they pick up on that, and then they really struggle with it. So it's just about, again, what are the positives of sending your child to nursery? There's loads and loads of positives. So just really focus on those would be my advice.
Yeah. And how would you say, like, where did you get the strength from? How did you go through those, moments, like with your child obviously crying and leaving it, and kind of, switching your mindset, I guess, to the more positive outlook of the situation rather than the emotional side?
Yeah, I would probably use the air hostess analogy, as in, if you're on a plane and the air hostess looks nervous,
Yeah.
you're gonna start bricking it.
So true. I do that
So
too.
I was like, if she sees me looking all upset and walking away crying, and I did cry when I got in the car. Of course I cried when I got in the car. But as far as she was concerned, you're gonna have the best day ever. They start to make although they're only little, they do start to make connections and friendships. And the staff at the nursery I sent her to were brilliant. I was, again, it was a great nursery, and I was proud that because I'm working hard, I'm able to send her to this nursery. So
Yeah.
it was that my choice to go back to work quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And thank God I did, because had my mother-in-law, obviously she passed away, had I have been off longer and not been earning money and then had to put her straight in a nursery, it would have been just a disaster. I probably wouldn't have had the pick of the bunch.
Yeah.
So yeah, focusing on just really putting my daughter first and thinking, how is she feeling? And if I act a certain way, she's going to gauge, and that's how she's going to feel too. So just about smiling through the
That's great. No, I agree. I think it is all about, looking at the bigger picture and not being in the moment. And I know this is all easier said than done. I mean, I don't have a child yet, so I obviously can't necessarily relate in that sense to that emotional attachment that you have. But I guess just generally to try to keep the bigger picture and a general positive mindset is the way forward in these things, especially when you're figuring it out and you don't know. I guess it's easier with a second child when you then have gone through it once all, and you kind of know how it all goes and how it can end up. But I think the first child is really like where you also learn to be a mother or a father for the first time, right? Like you maybe, I don't know how old you were when you first became a mom, but you can be 40, become a mom, but then you're still, if your child is 1 year, you're still 1 year old as being a mother, and I think people also forget that a lot. So yeah.
And
Okay.
that's another, you've hit on another interesting point. So I've only got one child.
Mm-hmm.
Again, parents with two, then they hit this new thing where one's at school, one's at nursery, you've got to get to work. It's really hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
So for me, it's try and approach it when you're not emotional, when you're in a rational frame of mind, and get your notepad out and be like, right, these are the fixed these are the fixed things we need to do. They need to get there, he needs to get there, and I need to get there. And then, okay, option A is da da da, and approach things quite pragmatically, because
Yeah.
what I see a lot with my friends and you know, some people in my family is they get very wedded to, I only want to do this. I want to do the office on these days. I don't want to do this, blah, blah, blah. And you think if you're going to be that rigid, it's going to be hard to feel happy with whatever solution you come up with. Some things are fixed. If your employer is saying you have to be in the office X amount of days a week, again, so that's one of your fixed, we have, you know, we have to work around this, but where can I be flexible?
Yeah.
Is there a conversation I can have with my boss where I just can't do that, but what I can offer is this, and, you know, a reasonable approach?
Yeah.
You just have to really try and get creative in how can we fit everything in that we need to do, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. And how would you say, like, how much of a role does your workplace play here? Like, obviously there's so much that you can control and plan and do, but then as you just said, obviously you have to be kind of flexible, but then also kind of have the agreement. So how would you say it plays that role?
It's a really good question, and I've been very lucky on this one. So when I originally went back, it was 2019, so it was before pre BC. It was before COVID,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it was in the office every day, and no one ever really knew any different.
Yeah.
That was how it was. So I've almost had the luxury of the hardest the hardest part. I only had to do that for like a year, and then I think we went into lockdown.
Mm-hmm.
Then we were all working remotely, um, which had its challenges. Now we're at a position where we are encouraged. I mean, I work in a different company now, and I'm in London, so it is far more of a commute. So it's, you know, right, you need to try and get into London 2-3 days a week. It's not it's not the easiest thing, I'm not gonna lie. It has its challenges. It has a cost attached to it, in that, okay, do I need a childminder? Da, da, da. I don't currently have a childminder. I've managed to manage just through being flexible. But
Mm-hmm.
the workplace, it does play a huge part, because you need to be reasonable on both sides.
Yeah.
So if you're not saying you should be grateful, but if, like me, you have a boss who gets it, she's been there, she's got 2 kids,
Mm-hmm.
she knows what it's like. She gives me a lot of flexibility, but I have to be absolutely respectful and responsible with that,
Mm-hmm.
because if you start taking the mick, people might
Yeah.
go, well, you know, so you need to be, it's just give and take. It really is
Yeah.
give and take. And for employers, the loyalty that you get back when you are, again, being reasonable, whether it's that you've got working parents working for you, you've got people who are also caring for an elderly or a
Yeah.
sick parent,
Yeah.
dog, whatever it is, the loyalty that you get back as an employer.
Mm.
So it's all give and take. So
For
I
sure.
have been very lucky in that area, I have to say.
Yeah. That's really great. For sure. I 100 million% agree. I think it's definitely a give and a take. First of all, it can hit anyone, right? I think it doesn't matter what your position is.
Mm,
You can be hit by life in any kind of way.
yeah.
And you should always try to understand the other person, you know, from that humanity side. But then at the same time, if someone then gives you that trust and gives you that flexibility, you also have to make sure that you don't use that, and you know, you showcase your appreciation and your gratitude by giving back with, you know, the skills and the trust that you've been offered, you know, kind of back. I think that's so crucial for people to understand that there has to be a balance, and if you want certain things, that you have to also give certain things. And yeah. And then
Mm,
this is how we can move forward, I think, in a very crazy time where, you know, it has to happen that both sides have to work, the woman and the
Yeah.
man, or like both partners, doesn't matter, woman, man, but both partners have to work if there's a child involved. And there has to be some sort of a compromise from a company's perspective, but then also from the person, for sure.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've seen it. I was thinking about this as I was commuting in this morning, actually, because I was thinking, God, I have worked with women who, before they've had children, have been merciless on
Yeah.
working parents. So, I used to work with a lady who she had zero tolerance for anybody saying, I'm really sorry, I'm going to have to leave. I've had a call from the school and my daughter's banged her head and I've got to take her
Yeah.
to or whatever. And if you're someone who every other day there's a problem, this is what I mean about being responsible with
Yeah.
any flexibility, because some people will just make these things up, quite frankly, so
Yeah.
that they go home. And it's when people are doing that and when
Of
it's
course.
genuine. I've
Yeah.
worked with women who have been totally unforgiving, but then the minute they've had a child themselves,
Everything changed.
everything changes. And that's what I mean, where you just think, on both sides, be responsible and respectful with the flexibility, but also be compassionate and understanding, because like you say, whether it's having a child, whether it's,
Yeah.
anything can happen. Just be, if the person is delivering good work,
Hmm.
just back off. Like,
Yeah.
let them do it in a way that works. If the
Yeah.
productivity is there, then who really cares how it's
Yeah.
getting done?
Yeah.
It's getting done. Don't, on both sides, just be respectful is what I think people need
Yeah.
to do more of.
I mean, that's a very good point. I think this is a topic in itself, actually, with the whole flexibility thing. But I just want to say one more thing. I remember I worked once with a very lovely person, and she had um, not a newborn, but he was, I think, 1 or 1.5. So he was still quite small. And she, obviously, we were fully flexible. And she was saying, like, I can't do much during the day because I'm taking care of my child, but I'm very productive and I do exactly the same work from the afternoon till the evening when my husband comes back and, he looks after the child and I can just go into the office and just do my whole work. So I think also the times sometimes are flexible, right? This whole 9 to 5 kind of situation has to sometimes be put upside down, because if you show that flexibility and that trust, then you can still get the same out of someone who is caring for someone, but just on their terms, if they really do still deliver the quality and the work. So yeah, I think, again, it goes both ways. Well, thank you so much for your input and
Yeah.
your story. I find it quite inspiring, actually, all the things that you told me that you did, and how you handled it. And I think it's very inspiring to also have that kind of a strong mindset. So I'm pretty sure it's going to be inspiring to a lot of other people too. Um, I would have one more question, and that is, what would you say is your top 3 tips to someone who is maybe becoming a mom and worrying about that, or is now just about to go back to work? What would be your 3 top tips for
Yeah.
that kind of a
So,
person?
so hopefully I'm not repeating myself, but a recap on what we've said, I guess. So look for the positives.
Hmm.
Always look for the positives. I think there's like a Buddhist saying that happiness comes from accepting. So
Hmm.
accept, you if you have to go back to work because financially or whatever reason you have to go back to work, try and find some stuff in there that's positive, because you're just going to have a far easier time if you're like, you know what, I'd rather be at home with my kid, but by going to work I can ABCD. So
Hmm.
think about positives. It would definitely be, get the facts. So, okay, I'm a couple of months from going back to work. What days do I need? What can I do? What can't I do? And really make that list of what's movable and what's fixed,
Hmm.
so that you can then build your plan around that, not just expect to sort of go back day one unorganized and just be in total whirlwind. So that would be the second one.
Mm-hmm.
And then my third one would be, from a practical point of view, don't leave things to the last minute in all aspects. So if you're going to need a nursery, get on it as early as possible, because when you're asking people, I need to start nursery in a month, you're going to have trouble. There's wait time. So be organized, even down to don't pack the bag in the morning, get home from work, have your dinner, and then just spend 15 minutes, just have everything ready. Because then in the morning you can get up, you can get ready, you can leave the house. There's not all this chaos unfolded with, 3 people trying to get out the house at once.
Yeah.
So just be organized. And if that means you need to get out of bed 40 minutes before everyone else, once you're up, you're up. There's something really quite magical about that little bit of time when the sun's coming up and no one else is around, and set yourself up for a day of just being nice and calm. So be organized, look for the positives, and I can't remember what I said on the second one. Record as well.
and get the facts, no?
Get the facts. Get the facts.
Great. Thank you so much for your time, Laura. I really appreciate all your input, and all the best to you.
Thank you so much.